is to show you how a country in macroeconomic distress, in serious distress, makes a quick recovery with an impact on its ordinary citizens. And the people at the center of it was a gentleman we have here, the present governor of Kisumu, and a dear friend of mine, Professor Peter Nyong. He did this video clip just for this purpose for us because he was unable to be with us. But he's so devoted to the work he did with President Kibaki, turning the economy around, that he felt it was necessary to send us this message. Professor Nyong.
The governor of Kisumu, and I've been governor for Kisumu now, my second time. Good morning. Mike, thank you for asking me to give a brief on what we did with the economic recovery strategy for wealth and employment creation in 2002. You know, the National Rainbow Coalition government had just come into power after a long period of fight for reforms, both for democracy as well as economic and social development in our country. So we decided to have a series of discourses with people before we could put anything in paper regarding our development program. So we called several meetings. One of them, which was very important, was the one we called at Leisure Lodge at the coast, with a cross-section of people, private sector, unions, development partners, government officials, investors. It's a very robust meeting where they said, okay, look, here we are all Kenyans, we're all interested in the future of this country. We are in government, we have a reform project, a reform program. Here it is. We would like first to deal with poverty in this country, and secondly, to open a democratic space for our people. Doing the two things together sometimes is difficult, but I think with the working relationship among all of us, we can do it. We are a spirit, or we can do it. Nobody else is going to do it for us. Contributions were made, and people agreed on one thing, that we must have a project for creating wealth and fighting poverty. And that is why we call it economic recovery strategy for wealth and employment creation. It's only when people have where to work, in other words, employers, that they can have salaries. So wealth creation and employment and poverty that go together really, as it were. It was at that meeting too that the private sector allowance was born. I remember having lunch with my friend, very known businessman in Nairobi, we went for lunch, and I said, look, why don't we have the private sector get together and steal one voice really, or be more coordinated in communicating with government, because government is one, the private sector has a situation, manufacturers, fine, they're fine, but I think if we have a coordinated approach to this thing, it might fight better. And the private sector allows to get by board. So these discussions that we established the Economic and Social Council, which was going to be an arena for the meeting between the private sector and the government and professionals and interest groups and so on, which would then discuss government policy with us, but also rally the voice of the non-governmental organizations, the private sector, unions and so on, to support it. And I want to talk briefly about what I did or we did together for North Municipal Planning and National Development, the rolling out of the economic recovery strategy for wealth and employment creation. It was really a discourse between us and the private sector and non-governmental organizations. I remember Manu Chandaria as head of the private sector, and his team played a very big role. And indeed, when we met in Mubasha, that is when the private sector formed after discussion between Manu Chandaria. So I think we celebrate year after year what we did because the economic recovery strategy will improve the economy, growing at 2% within the year or so into 7%. And that continued throughout the life of the NAC government and the impact of the NAC government in terms of the future is even better today.
it?
No.
Is that it? Well, I should add, okay, now the role that was played by the private sector, the International Investors Conference that we had in Kenya in building up confidence in the country, raising net inflows of direct foreign investment, using aid well. An awful lot of that had to do with the origin of what was said at the very beginning, raising revenue. President's very precise directions to raise